Okay, see that guy on my back up there? Woo woo dude strikes back. I think I was using that one the other day at JC's live stream. There is no try. There is only woo. Steven, I believe that Steven, usually Steven does all these backgrounds for me, crypto karaoke. Oh boy, haven't posted in a while. I know besides the live stream, I'm just finishing up on my helicopter stuff and trying to track down a little alternator issue. The light comes on, flip the switch off and back on, it goes away for a while. No rhyme or reason. We've troubleshot it out of absolutely everywhere. You know, we've got two regulators, the old one, the new one. The old one was fine. It does it with that. We've turned the radio and transponder off, still does it. Don't turn the fuel boost pump off, still does it. Keyed up. At one point we thought when we keyed up it was doing it. Now it doesn't even matter. You know, just keyed up on the mic. And at one point it did it. I had pretty much everything turned off and it still did it. So I'm like, yeah, there's some kind of issue. So I got this. First of all, point of the video is I'm doing a live stream tonight. I'm thinking I'm going to probably set it for 7. Unless for some reason I end up doing it early, I may change it earlier. But I'll go ahead and post it on YouTube as like an upcoming show for tonight. But I'm going to start it for 7 p.m. Eastern time. And he's got a few things he wants to share that Spirit's been talking about. So, anyway, so this, everything on the helicopter's it's been good. I flew the thing back from a pretty far distance down to this couple different airports, and I was at one airport, and I'm going to move to another airport that's got a closed hangar, so it's out of the weather. Even though I have covers and everything for it, still rather keep it out of the weather, sun beating on it and everything else. So, my CFI, who's the trainer, certified flight instructor, he's a mechanic as well. He's got all these different certifications, so he can work on it. He can do my annual, like he can do it all. And it had an old police alternator on there, big heavy duty one, because it at one point was a police helicopter that had a spotlight on it, I guess. So it needed a heavier duty alternator or whatever. So all that stuff had been removed, but the alternator, they just left the alternator on. It's just a big one. So he's like, if this was mine, I would take that off there and just put the regular alternator on there. I'm looking back at your maintenance records, and they've had a lot of trouble with the belts in that thing. I would just get rid of it. I said, all right, so we get a brand new alternator, and I'm come up ultimately for my flight instructions up to where he's at. My final week or so of stuff I have to do, and we're noticing this light coming on every now and then. Battery light comes on, which means there's no charging, so boom, flip the switch. And he said, the interesting thing was when I first fired this up after I got, it ready to go, the annual was done, new alternator's on, he goes, new regulator, he goes, your amp meter quit working. It was just stuck in one spot, will not move no matter what. And he goes, so I thought that was kind of strange. He goes, I did see a little wiring issue with previously how this thing was set up with the alternator. And he goes, so someone's been working on the charging system at least at some point. And he goes, but I got the schematic, I went through it and I wired it, the way it's supposed to be. He goes, so it's just odd that ammeter quit working. He goes, so you should get a digital. They've got this one here, and it was like $600, $700 I think for this thing. But I was like, well, let's get it. It has a voltmeter, time, as in regular time, UTC time or Z time, Zulu time. It has 2 USB ports, which take the 24 volt DC system down to 12 volt, down to 5 volt or whatever. Not to 12, but down to 5 for your things you plug in. Typical USB stuff. Charge your phone, charge the iPad, which I've got 4Flight on the iPad. That's what I use. 4Flight's a cool program. So, like, yeah, let's get that one. So we can at least see the voltage, and if it drops and the light comes on, we'll know. We can at least watch the voltage with our eye rather than the little ammeter gauge that might move a little bit, which is broken anyway. So it still did it, and we're like, shoot. So the voltage starts dropping from 28 when it's charging down to 26, 26 and a half, 25. As long as you keep going, it'll go down into the 24 point something range. So, all right, flip the switch off, the alternator switch, flip it back on, boop, comes back to life. And we're just tracking this thing. So he goes, I'm going to just rewire it tomorrow morning before you leave, so I know every single piece to the regulator, to the alternator, everything. It's to the switch. We're going to put a new switch in too. I've got a brand new switch we'll use just in case there's a problem with the switch. All right. He goes, hey, I found a broken wire. He's got a butt connector on it where they extended it. He goes, put the meter on it and check it and wiggle the wire. And I go, oh yeah, it's breaking up. Like connection, no connection, connection, no connection. I go, oh shit. I go, man, all right. I think we found it. So off I go to Florida, where I live, and it did it several times on me on the way home, and I had a few hours of a flight, and I'm like, son of a bitch, man, come on. I go, what's left? Just the alternator. It's brand new, but you never know. Sometimes you get a new part, and it's just got a problem. So we've tried 2 different voltage regulator, which I have both. One of them's installed, the other one's not. It's just a spare now. Brand new switch, brand new wiring. Like, everything in there is new. So it's like, gosh, maybe it's just the alternator. Well, I noticed a lot of oil splashing on the alternator, and this engine is like on its side, you could say, or vertical, I believe, anyways, but it has a breather tube for the crankcase, which is just a little hose. Looks like a little heater hose of a car, if you know what that is, like a 3/4 heater hose, and it was about this long. So as you're flying forward, it's just common to drip a little oil out here and there as it's doing its thing. It's very common on this helicopter. It happens to all of them. Once you park the thing, you're sitting still, you'll see a few drops on the ground that stay there, and that's it. So as you're flying, it does it too, and that stuff can kind of get on stuff. So the oil can. So I'm noticing the alternator's like, man, it's got quite a bit of oil on it from that thing. I go, maybe we ought to get a new tube, and maybe they got one that's got a 90 on it. So I went to the parts store and found one. It's like, oh, it's longer, it's got a 90. I go, that will work good, just to keep it from splashing on stuff. But he told me, he goes, Joe, I used to have a flight school, I had a repair shop, everything. He goes, I've worked on a ton of these helicopters, this exact model, and I've had alternator problems and charging problems and all that stuff. He goes, usually it was a regulator, but we've had our share of problems. He goes, but all of them had oil sprayed on them. He goes, and I've never had one have quit working because of oil or whatever. I said, yeah, okay, all right. But I'm like, I just still didn't like it, and I'm like, oh, I'd like it. So we ended up getting a new tube. So he came down here recently, a couple days ago, or was it yesterday? Or was it Friday? Maybe it was Friday. Anyways, and he goes, I'm gonna just drive down. I've got a spare used alternator that my friend's got on the shelf. It's an airplane alternator, but it's the same alternator, and do the same thing, exactly the same one you've got. So I'm gonna bring it down. We'll test it out for a while. You can fly around your soloed, so you can go fly, and let's try to figure out, is it the alternator? Because you're gonna know if you're flying it. So I said, all right. So before he came down, I asked Spirit. I said, Spirit, can you give me a dream on this? We're just chasing our tails on this. Is it the alternator? Is it something else? Like, please give me something in a dream that'll let me know. So they gave me this dream where I'm standing, I don't know what I was in. I don't feel like I was in a helicopter, but I was there in something. And I had a radio like a police officer would use. In a helicopter, you got the helmet with the little mic right here. You buy the cyclic that you're flying with. It's got a little trigger, so you key up and you speak. That way you don't have to take your hands off the controls, right? Well, in this dream, I've got trying to talk, and it was either keyed on the whole time, or I pressed it and it wouldn't key up. So there was a wiring issue. Wasn't sure what it was. So this guy comes over to repair it. He's taking stuff apart. Let's look at that. Let's look at that. And as he's moving stuff out of the way, oh, it's working. It's working again. It's working. It's working. He goes, oh yeah, we got a wiring. It's a wiring issue. So he's trying to trace the particular wire or whatever. So I wake up and I go, that's exactly what we just did the other day. We found the bad wire. It was a butt connector, which a butt connector is just you splashing 2 wires together to make it longer or whatever. And he completely got rid of it, ran a whole brand new wire. And that was the one I was testing. That he goes, I tested it, my friend Tim tested it. It's all. I said, no, it's breaking up. Like, there's a good connection. I wiggle the wire, it stops. He goes, it's got to be the butt connector. He goes, so, I think maybe we got it. And I'm like, yeah, me too, great. But it did it again, right? So I'm like, well, that tells me it's not the alternator. Like, it's still a wiring issue. So I told him, I said, I get these dreams, man. I said, I think it might be a wiring issue. I'm not real sure. But of course you got the alternator. We were eating lunch at first. So I said, well, obviously we're going to do that. But maybe it still is. I don't know. So I'm out there helping him. He's just handing me stuff. Give me that. Hand me that. And it's easy as working on an older car. Alternator, take it off. It's got one belt for the alternator, and that's kind of the only thing I think as far as belts go, besides the rotor blade system and tail blade system. They use a series of 6 belts to engage and disengage. But anyways, it's got one belt for one accessory, the alternator. It's an air-cooled engine, Lycoming. So we're putting on all this stuff, and I'm looking at he gives me the old one, and I just kind of set it aside, and I'm looking at it, and I got the schematic. He gave me the schematic. He printed out the schematic. I'm just looking at it, going over, like, pretty obvious, But I see there's an additional stud sticking where you would place a wire, right? And it says aux, as in auxiliary. And then below it, it had these 4 little, like, 5/16 headed bolts that more or less look like they attach to the alternator. You're not supposed to take them out and do anything with them. However, one of them that was just above, I wish I had it with me. I could just show you. But it had this 4, like a plastic piece on the back of the alternator that probably covered some electronics or something. And there was like 4 of those types of little screws. Not studs. Stud would mean like my finger sticking out with threaded, right? For those of you that just don't know what I'm talking about, it's studded. I could slide a wire connection over it, and then put a screw or a nut in a washer down on it and tighten it down. That's a stud. Whereas a screw, you know what a screw looks like. It's you just screw it in and it goes all the way in and that's it. But there was a ground connector and this other one that had a little mini wire with it that went from one of the little mini ground stud to one of those screwed in types on the plastic piece. Or maybe it was just above the plastic piece, but it was the same kind. And I'm looking at the new alternator that we've now taken off because we're going to put the used one on there, and I'm noticing the auxiliary stud that is not supposed to be used next to it on the plastic piece that has 4 or so of those little mini screwed ones, not the studs. There was one labeled aux, as an auxiliary also, and it was just one of those little screw-in style. But when he handed me the alternator, it had been pretty much screwed out all the way and was just barely in there. So that I'm looking at this and I'm going, wait a minute. And I didn't think of it at the time, and I never did ask him afterwards because I don't remember anyways now. But I'm going, oh, I wonder if he took the mini wire from the ground that the schematic shows going to the other part of the ground on the alternator, shares this connection, and he accidentally went a little lower to the other little screw-in thing that says auxiliary. So he's accidentally had the first one, or maybe we got it the truth, because that's not something we would have to take off. So the alternator may have come that way from the factory, and just kind of overlooked it. So yes, we put a used alternator on there, and I've flown it about 35-40 minutes already. Not necessarily enough time to tell if this problem is solved, because sometimes I would go longer than that, no problem, then all of a sudden, boop, here's a problem again. So just real intermittent. So I'll find out as I fly this thing. But that would be a wiring problem. So even though we're putting a used alternator on, if that wire was either from the factory at the wrong little location, and it's very close to the one it needs to be on, maybe that was it. I'm going, why else is that taken off? Something had to go there. If he handed it to me, then he was unscrewing that to take a wire of some type off of there, and then he, rather than screw the whole thing back in, he hands me the alternator now that he's got all the wires off. So he knows he needed that wire to put on the new alternator, or the used alternator. But when I looked at it, I think it was installed in the correct position. So I'm going, oh, maybe I ought to ask him, because he took the old alternator with the old as in new, the new alternator with him, because he'll get a refund. That thing was like $1,200. Stuff is not cheap on any aircraft. But I could have got a rebuilt one for, I think he said $800 or $900, and I was like, well, if I can get a brand new one, let's just go with the new one, $1,200. But either A, it was that wire was installed wrong from the factory, or if by chance the old police alternator had that same wire, and he took it off of that, put onto the new one. He just put the one pin and screw thing in the wrong spot. But looking at the wire, to me it looked like it was a new wire, and that alternator was old. The old one was old. Like, it would have weathering and just, you know what I mean, like it would just look, you could just tell this is an old wire. And this wire looked pretty damn new to me. So I'm thinking maybe we got it wrong from the factory. They just, you know, they had it on auxiliary, and it should have been the next one up. You know, that's all I can think of. Now, having said that, if I go and fly this thing, which I will be, getting some more practice in and whatnot, you know, getting proficient in the maneuvers I need to know, and the light comes on again, then I'll for sure know, I guess it wasn't that. Alternator or nothing, the alternator was fine. You still have a wiring problem because of my dream. And maybe I just need a third set of eyes. There's a real knowledgeable guy at this other airport that I'm taking it to, that I'll be staying at now with the helicopter, or it will be staying at, that was asking me some questions, and you know, and maybe I can have him just go over it, pay him for his time to just kind of go over it. I've got a copy of the schematic, so you know, that'll be my next thing. So other than that, the old girl flew really well, and I was just real busy doing this training. That's all I was focused on. I'm not doing videos, you know, like, except for the one where I'm like, I'm turning off comments because the scammers, man, they're just out of control. They're scamming people. Joe, I thought I was talking to you. You on WhatsApp? No, I never do that. I don't reach out to you that way. I don't reply to your comments telling you to sign up for something to me. But there's new people coming all the time, and these scammers reply to almost everybody, pretending to be me. It says JSnip4, but if you click on their name, it goes to some other YouTube channel, not mine. No subscribers, kind of a thing. But people don't do that. They just think they're having a conversation with me, so they're replying back and forth, and they are getting scammed. So that's why I've got comments off right now. I mean, if I could remember every single video to give a disclaimer, hey, don't listen to any replies and that may be from me telling you to join WhatsApp or some investment thing. It's not me, it's the scammer. If I could remember to do that every single video, I could turn the comments back on. But my problem is I don't remember to do that every video. And it'll be one of those ones I forget, and someone gets scammed, some new person comes in, they get scammed, and it had nothing to do with me trying to help them invest in something, whatever. It's just a big scam thing. So right now, comments are off, and again, I may change that in the future, but for now, I'd rather keep people safe than sorry, so to speak. So anyways, just a little update. Figure give you a little personal information about what's going on in my life right now. And I want to go fly, but I can't go fly right now because there's a section of grass that I have to pull basically it has wheels on the back of the skids of the helicopter, and it has this little bar that you crank the wheel down on the right side, put a pin in it, crank the wheel down with the bar on the left side, put a pin in it. Now the back of it's jacked up just maybe a couple inches off the ground, if that. And then you can go back to the tail section and just kind of pull down because it's like the center of gravity thing, right? And you pick it up. The thing weighs 1,100 pounds, but on a surface you can push it. You know, it's got those little wheels, but the wheels aren't straight up and down, and all of them they're like tilted like this. So you're really not utilizing the full, you know, length or width of the wheel. It's kind of on its side, but this is the way the design is. So on surface, hard surface, no problem, you know, and I could push it even, you know, by myself. But if there's grass, forget about it. Forget about it. Because those wheels just cut right into the grass, the skids are touching, and you're like trying to plow through this, and you can see the line in the grass as you go behind. It's digging into the dirt. It is a bear. So I bought this thing called a heli tow cart that hooks up to the front of the skids. It's electronic, battery operated, got a lot of torque, and you just, once you got the back tires up, you just lift the front of the skids up just a couple, you know, inch or two, just enough to get off the ground, and then you forward, backward, and then walk with the thing. Well, in the grass, the wheels are spinning on this thing because it's not enough weight in the front of it to push down, and even if there was, the tires are just so thin, even though they're aired tires, they're thin, and they're on their side, you know, angled, so just, you know, the whole meat of the tire is like this, instead of like this, it's like this, so you're just getting a small section of tire touching the ground. It just cuts through the dirt. So I'm like, oh my God. Me and the guy there, the airport manager, he helped me push it in, but it wasn't easy. And I'm like, man, I was like, do you think I could pay for a concrete slab here with the owner of the airport? He goes, yeah, that'd be no problem. You could do that. It was like $3,500. I quoted it, got a quote to do that. And I go, what if I leave the airport and I have the same problem somewhere else? you know, or get a different hanger somewhere. I'm going, if there's grass involved, I just threw away $3,500 for someone else to use real nicely. I'm going, let me call that place that I bought the tow cart from, and I went on their website. Sure enough, they've got this dual wheel system that's aired tires. They're bigger than the ones that are on mine. They don't sit at an angle. They sit up and down, and there's a tire on the left side of the skid, tire on the right side of the skid. That's one side, and then dual tires on the other side. And again, they're nice up and down, vertical. And it's very simple to just crank them down real quick, boop, 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 done. And it lifts it off the ground even higher than the other ones. Not much, but higher, which is good. And they won't eat into the grass. Number one, I've got 2 tires on each side as opposed to one right now that's real thin. So it wasn't cheap either. There's another like $1,400 with shipping included. I'm like, damn it. But again, at least I can take that with me everywhere. You know, anywhere I go, I could have those. So way better idea than the concrete thing, and thank God they had them. So the only other issue was, well, they don't have my helicopter listed. They have an R44 and an R66 Robinson listed, and I called him. He goes, yeah, we're not real sure. He goes, you can kind of buy them and try, you know. So I said, all right. So I went ahead and did it. But looking at the video he showed me, I go, man, even if what I have there won't work, I could have somebody weld this little temporary thing that I only use when I'm moving the helicopter to pick this up, no problem. Like, I easily could do that. And I'm going, yeah, okay. I was like, I'm just going to get them. So I can't fly right now because it is a pain. There's no way I'll be able to get the helicopter out by myself once I hit that grass part of the hangars in concrete. But once I get out, I have to go past, you know, this, was it 28 feet or so of grass to get onto the, really a taxiway that's asphalt. It'll get stuck. And if it's stuck and no one's there to help me, I'm done. And now it's going to be out in the open where it can get rained on and all that, you know. So I'm like, I'm not going to be flying for the next few days until that damn part comes in. Those wheels. So anyways, I'm not flying. I want to go fly. I can't fly. Soloed. I'm able to go. And I got to wait on these stupid wheels to come in. So that's been my whole freaking focus this whole time. But now I'm back. And I'm still being very particular about videos I may want to do or not do right now. Because I think Cliff High and astrology and everything showing, boy, oh boy, are the controllers of the social media especially going to really start cracking down on people. I mean, just getting ridiculous and shutting down videos, shutting down channels. Because, again, if you see what's happening with Hunter Biden's name attached to Ukraine right now, and that's all I'm going to say, there's things coming out that I don't think any of us knew. Certain Department of Defense things that are pretty disturbing. So anyways, I'm thinking, do I want to talk about that? I don't know. I may leave that alone. Everyone's going to get a hold of it anyways. So I'm just going to be real particular about what I talk about. On that note, again, tonight, 6 p.m., 7 p.m., probably 7, I'm not sure, but Eastern time, somewhere around there. Take care.